The ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was called Haniel's Promise, and it carried 12 humans on a mission that many believed was impossible. They were going to meet the Cathari. Captain Una Park stood at the front of the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and black hair pulled tight against her head. She had commanded ships for 15 years, but she had never felt fear like this before. The Cathari were not like other species. They did not talk. They did not negotiate. They killed. "Captain, we are entering their territory now," said the navigator. A young man named Taiho Shin. His voice was steady, but Yuna could see his hands shaking slightly over the controls. "Keep us moving," Yuna said calmly. "Nice and slow. We are guests here, not invaders." Behind her, Lieutenant Daeho Kim was reading through files on his tablet. He was the ship's xenobiologist, which meant he studied alien life forms. He had spent 3 years learning everything he could about the Cathari, and what he had learned was terrifying. They were massive creatures, standing over 7 feet tall. They looked like wolves that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Their bodies were covered in thick silver-gray fur, and their eyes glowed amber in the dark. They had claws that could tear through metal and teeth that could crush bone. But the most frightening thing about them was their society. They respected only one thing: strength. The weak did not survive among the Cathari. They were either killed or abandoned. No species in the Galactic Council had ever made peace with them. Many had tried. All had failed. "Daeho," Yuna said without turning around. "Tell me again why we are doing this." Daeho looked up from his tablet. "Because if we do not try, the war will come to us. The Cathari are expanding their territory. In 10 years, maybe less, they will reach human space. We can fight them then and lose millions of lives, or we can try to talk to them now. And if they do not want to talk?" Daeho was quiet for a moment. "Then at least we tried." Yuna nodded slowly. She appreciated his honesty. Many people would have given her false hope, but Daeho always told the truth, even when the truth was hard to hear. The hours passed slowly. The crew worked in silence, each person lost in their own thoughts. Dr. Hana Choi, the ship's surgeon, checked her medical supplies for the 10th time. She was a calm and gentle woman who had saved many lives during her career. But she knew that if the Cathari attacked, there would be nothing she could do. Their weapons did not wound. They destroyed Dot. It was Taiho who saw them first. "Captain," he said, his voice suddenly tight. "Ships approaching. 15 of them." Yuna felt her stomach drop, but she kept her face calm. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life, and Yuna saw them. 15 Cathari warships, each one 3 times the size of Haniel's Promise. They were shaped like arrows, black and sharp against the stars. They moved with terrible speed, surrounding the human ship in seconds. "They are targeting us," Taiho said. "All 15 ships have weapons locked on our position." "Do not fire," Yuna said firmly. "Nobody fires unless I give the order." "Captain, if we do not defend ourselves," I said, "do not fire." Yuna's voice was like ice. "We came here to make peace, not war. If we shoot first, we prove that we are exactly what they think we are. Just another enemy to destroy." The crew obeyed, though Yuna could see the fear in their eyes. She felt it too, but she would not let it control her. The communication system crackled to life. A deep, growling voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, you have entered the territory of the Cathari. You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Yuna took a deep breath. "This is Captain Una Park of the Haniel's Promise. We come in peace. We wish only to speak with your leaders." There was a long silence. Then the voice returned, colder than before. "You will be boarded. Your fate will be decided by Alpha Ron." The connection ended. Deho moved to stand beside Yuna. "Alpharon," he said quietly. "He is the leader of this fleet. One of the most powerful warriors in Cathari history. He has never lost a battle. Is there anything else I should know?" "Yes. He hates weakness more than anything. If he sees fear in us, he will kill us without a second thought." Yuna looked at her crew. 12 people, all of them afraid, all of them looking to her for guidance. She straightened her shoulders. "Then we will not show him fear," she said. "We will show him something he has never seen before. We will show him humans." The boarding took only minutes. The Cathari cut through the airlock like it was made of paper. Then they entered, one by one, their massive forms filling the corridors of the small human ship. Yuna stood at the front, her hands at her sides, her chin raised. Behind her, her crew formed a line, standing as tall as they could. Alpharon was the last to enter. He was enormous, even by Cathari standards. His silver fur was marked with dozens of scars, each one a story of battle and blood. His amber eyes swept over the humans with cold contempt. "So," he growled, his voice like stones grinding together. "These are the humans. Small, soft, no claws, no fangs." He stepped closer to Yuna, towering over her. "I have killed creatures 10 times your size. What makes you think you can speak to me as equals?" Yuna met his gaze without flinching. "Because we are not here to fight you, Alpharon. We are here to understand you." Ron laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Understand us? You cannot understand us. You are prey, and prey has only one purpose." He raised his clawed hand. "To die." Yuna did not move, did not blink, did not breathe. "Then kill me," she said quietly. "But know that if you do, you will never learn what we have to offer. And you will never know if there was another way." Ron's hand stopped. His eyes narrowed. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, from the back of the Cathari group, there came a sound that changed everything. A cry of pain. A child's cry, and nothing would ever be the same again. The cry cut through the tension like a knife. Every head turned toward the back of the Cathari boarding party, where a young warrior was pushing his way forward. He was moving fast, almost running, and in his arms he carried something small and still. A cub. She was tiny, barely reaching the young warrior's elbow when standing. Her silver fur, which should have been bright and clean, was dark and wet with blood. Her small chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths, and her amber eyes were half closed, looking at nothing. "Alpha!" the young warrior cried out. "Alpharon, please." Ron turned away from Yuna so fast that the human captain stumbled backward. All the cold anger in his eyes was gone. In its place was something Yuna had never expected to see in a Cathari. Terror. "Sira," Ron breathed. He crossed the distance in 2 great strides and took the cub from the young warrior's arms. His massive clawed hands, which had killed hundreds, now held the small body with impossible gentleness. "What happened? Tell me what happened." The young warrior's voice shook. "The hull breach, Alpha. When we were approaching the human ship, there was a failure in the lower deck. She was playing there. She was not supposed to be there, but she was." He lowered his head in shame. "The decompression caught her before we could seal the breach. The healers have looked at her. They say there is nothing they can do. The damage is inside. They do not know how to fix it." Ron fell to his knees. The great Alpha, the undefeated warrior, the terror of a dozen star systems, knelt on the floor of a human ship and held his dying daughter against his chest. "No," he whispered. No. Not her. Not my Sira." The other Cathari warriors stood frozen. They did not know what to do. Their Alpha was showing weakness, showing grief, and among their people, such things were shameful. But none of them moved to challenge him. None of them spoke. They simply watched, their amber eyes filled with a pain they did not know how to express. Yuna watched too. She watched this massive creature, this killer, this monster from the stories, break apart in front of her. And she felt something she had not expected. She felt pity. Beside her, Deho stepped forward. Yuna grabbed his arm, trying to stop him, but he gently pulled free. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "My job," he said quietly. He walked toward Ron slowly, his hands raised and open, showing that he held no weapons. The Cathari warriors growled warnings at him, but he did not stop. He kept walking until he was standing just a few feet from the Alpha. "I am a doctor," Deho said. His voice was calm and clear. "I study life. I study how to save it. Let me look at your daughter." Ron's head snapped up. His amber eyes, wet with tears he was trying to hide, fixed on the human with a mix of confusion and rage. "You?" he snarled. "You are small, weak. What could you possibly do?" "Maybe nothing," Deho admitted. "But maybe something? Your healers know how to treat wounds from battle, from claws and blades and weapons. But this is different. This is damage from pressure, from the vacuum of space. My people have studied such injuries for a long time. We have lost many of our own to the cold darkness out there, and we have learned how to fight it." Ron looked down at Syrah. She was getting weaker. Her breathing was slower now, and her small paws twitched as if she was having bad dreams. "If I let you touch her," Ron said slowly, "and she dies, I will tear you apart. I will make your death last for days. Do you understand?" Deho nodded. "I understand. Why?" Ron demanded. "Why would you risk this? She's not your child. She's not your species. She is nothing to you." Deho looked at the cub, so small and fragile in her father's arms. He thought about his own family back on Earth, about his niece who was almost the same age. He thought about all the times he had watched her play, heard her laugh, seen her cry. "She is a child," Deho said simply. "That is enough." Ron stared at him for a long moment. Something shifted in the Alpha's eyes, something that Deho could not quite name. Then, slowly, carefully, Ron held out his daughter. Deho took her as gently as he could. She weighed almost nothing, and he could feel her small heart beating against his chest. It was too fast. Much too fast. "Hannah," he called over his shoulder. "I need you, now." Dr. Hannah Choi was already moving. She had been watching everything, and she had already begun preparing. She carried a medical kit in her hands, and her face was set with determination. "Bring her to the medical bay," Hannah said. "We do not have much time." Deho nodded and began walking. Ron followed close behind, his warriors parting to let them pass. Yuna fell into step beside the Alpha, though she did not speak. There was nothing to say that the medical bay of Hanyul's promise was small but clean. Hannah had designed it herself, making sure that every tool, every machine, every medicine was exactly where she needed it. She had never expected to use it like this. She had never expected to operate on a Cathari cub while armed warriors watched her every move. Deho laid Syrah on the operating table. The cub whimpered softly, and Ron growled in response, a sound of pure, helpless pain. "You need to stay back," Hannah told the Alpha. Her voice was firm but not unkind. "I know you want to be close to her, but if you are too close, you might get in the way. And if you get in the way, she might die." Ron's claws dug into his palms, drawing blood. But he stepped back. Hannah turned to Deho. "Talk to me. What are we dealing with?" Deho was already scanning the cub with a small device. His face grew pale as he read the results. Collapsed lung on the left side. Internal bleeding in the abdomen. Multiple fractures in the ribs and spine, and he paused, his jaw tightening, and pressure damage to the heart. She is dying, Hannah. She is dying right now. Hannah closed her eyes for just a moment. Then she opened them and all the fear was gone. There was only focus. Then we better get to work, she said. Get me the surgical tools. We start with the lung. Outside the medical bay, Una stood guard. The HFY warriors surrounded her, their spears ready, their eyes hostile. They did not trust her. They did not trust any human, but Una did not move. She stood between them and the door, her small body blocking their path, and she met their glares without fear. You will not enter, she said. Not until the doctors are done. One of the warriors stepped forward, baring his fangs. You think you can stop us, little human? Una smiled. It was not a happy smile. No, but I can slow you down. And every second you spend fighting me is a second my doctors can use to save your alpha's daughter. The warrior hesitated. He looked at his companions, then back at Una. Then, slowly, he stepped back, and inside the medical bay, the fight for Syrah's life had only just begun. The night was long. Longer than any night Deho had ever known. He stood over the small body of Syrah, his hands steady even as his heart raced. Beside him, Hannah worked with the focus of someone who had forgotten everything else in the universe except the life in front of her. The medical bay was filled with the soft beeping of machines and the quiet sounds of their work. Ron stood in the corner, exactly where Hannah had told him to stay. He had not moved in hours. His amber eyes never left his daughter, and his claws were still buried in his palms, blood dripping slowly onto the floor. The other HFY warriors had tried to speak to him, but he had not answered. He was somewhere else, lost in a place of fear and hope and terrible waiting. Her lung is reinflating, Hannah said, her voice tight with concentration. The repair is holding. We can move on. Deho nodded and reached for another tool. The internal bleeding is next. I can see 3 major sites. If we do not stop them all, she will not make it. Then we stopped them all. They worked in silence, their movements quick and precise. Deho had trained for years to become a xenobiologist, to understand alien bodies and how they worked. But he had never operated on a HFY before. He was learning as he went, reading the signs of her body, guessing when he could not be sure, praying that he was right. Hannah was the one who truly saved Syrah's life. She was a surgeon of incredible skill, someone who could find problems that others missed and fix damage that others thought was beyond repair. Her hands moved through the cub's small body like they belonged there, finding each wound and closing it with care. But even Hannah could not do everything. Halfway through the surgery, Syrah's heart stopped. The machine beside the table let out a long, terrible sound. A flat line. No heartbeat. No life. Ron made a sound that Deho would never forget. It was not a roar or a growl. It was a cry, the sound of a father watching his child die. He lunged forward, but 2 of his own warriors grabbed him, holding him back. Do something, Ron screamed. Save her! You promised you would save her. Deho did not answer. He was already moving, grabbing the device that could restart a human heart. But would it work on a HFY? He did not know. He could not know. He could only try. Clear, he shouted. He pressed the device to Syrah's chest and activated it. Her small body jerked. The machine stayed flat. Again. Hannah ordered. Deho tried again. Another jerk. Still nothing. Ron was fighting against his warriors now, his eyes wild with grief. Let me go to her. Let me hold her. Please, let me hold my daughter. Deho blocked out the noise. He blocked out everything except the small body in front of him. He adjusted the device, increasing the power, and pressed it to her chest one more time. Come on, he whispered. Come on, little one. Fight. Your father is here. He's waiting for you. Do not leave him. Fight. He activated the device. Sira's body jerked. And then, like a miracle, the machine began to beep again. Slow at first, then faster. A heartbeat. Weak, but real. Sira was alive. Ron stopped fighting. He stared at the machine, at the line that moved up and down, proof that his daughter still lived. His legs gave out, and he fell to his knees, his massive body shaking with silent sobs. Deho let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. But there was no time to rest. They were not done yet. "We have her back," Hana said, her voice steady despite the sweat on her face. "But she is not stable. We need to finish the surgery before her body gives out again." They returned to work. The hours passed in a blur of blood and tools and desperate hope. Outside the medical bay, Yuna had not moved from her position. The Cathari warriors had stopped trying to push past her. Some of them had even sat down, their spears resting against the wall, their eyes fixed on the door with the same desperate hope that filled their alpha's heart. At some point, one of the younger warriors spoke. He was barely more than a cub himself, his fur still soft and unmarked by battle. "Why are they doing this?" he asked quietly. "The humans. Why are they trying to save her?" Yuna heard the question. She turned to look at the young warrior, seeing the confusion in his amber eyes. "Because that is what we do," she said simply. "We help those who need help. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. If someone is hurt, we try to heal them. If someone is dying, we try to save them. That is what it means to be human." The young warrior frowned. "But we were going to kill you. We boarded your ship with weapons. We threatened your lives. And still you help us?" Yuna smiled softly. "Yes. Why?" "Because kindness is not a reward for good behavior. It is a gift we give freely, even to those who might not deserve it. Especially to those who might not deserve it." She looked back at the medical bay door. "And because that cub in there is innocent, she did not choose to board this ship. She did not choose to threaten anyone. She's just a child who was hurt, and our doctors are trying to save her. That is all that matters." The young warrior was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded. Inside the medical bay, Deho and Hana were finishing their work. The last wound was closed. The last fracture was stabilized. Sira's breathing was still weak, but it was steady, regular. The breathing of someone who was healing, not dying. Hana stepped back from the table, her hands shaking with exhaustion. "It is done," she said. "She will need time to recover. Weeks, maybe longer. But if there are no complications..." She took a deep breath. She should live. Deho closed his eyes. Relief washed over him like a wave, so strong that he almost fell. He had done it. They had done it. Against all odds, they had saved her. Ron approached the table slowly, as if afraid that any sudden movement might break the miracle. He looked down at his daughter, at her small chest rising and falling, at the bandages wrapped around her body, at the machines that hummed softly as they helped her heal. "She is alive," he whispered. "My Sira is alive. She is strong," Deho said. "She fought hard, harder than anyone I have ever seen." Ron looked at the human doctor. For the first time, there was no contempt in his eyes, no anger, no hatred. There was only gratitude, so deep and raw that it seemed to hurt him. "You saved her," Ron said. "You saved my daughter. I do not. I do not know how to thank you." Deho shook his head. "You do not need to thank me. Just take care of her. That is all I ask." Ron looked back at Sira. His clawed hand reached out, gently touching her small paw. "I will," he promised. "I will take care of her. For the rest of my life." And in that moment, something changed. Not just in Ron, but in everyone who was watching. The Cathari warriors. The human crew. Even Yuna, standing guard at the door. Something old and hard and cold began to crack, and something new began to grow. Dawn came slowly to the Haniel's promise. There was no sun in this part of space, no real morning or night. But the ship had its own rhythm, its own way of marking time. The lights in the corridors grew brighter, the machines hummed a little louder, and the crew began to stir from whatever rest they had managed to find. But in the medical bay, no one had slept. Deho sat in a chair beside Sira's bed, his eyes red with exhaustion, but unable to close. He had been watching her all night, checking her vital signs, adjusting her medicine, making sure that nothing went wrong. Hannah had tried to get him to rest, but he had refused. He could not leave her. Not yet. Ron was still there too. The great Alpha had not moved from his corner, had not eaten or drunk anything, had barely even blinked. His entire world had shrunk to the small body on the medical table, the gentle rise and fall of his daughter's chest. The other Cathari warriors had eventually returned to their ships, but they had left reluctantly, looking back over their shoulders as if they were afraid that Sira might disappear if they looked away for too long. Only two remained, the young warrior who had brought her in, and an older female with gray streaks in her silver fur. They stood silent guard near the door, their spears still in their hands but pointed at the floor. It was almost peaceful. Then Sira opened her eyes. The cub blinked slowly, confused by the strange lights and unfamiliar smells around her. She tried to move, but pain shot through her body, and she let out a small whimper. Ron was at her side in an instant. "Sira," he said, his voice breaking. "Sira, my little one, I am here. Father is here." Sira turned her head toward the sound of his voice. When she saw him, her eyes widened, and she reached out with one small paw. "Papa," she whispered. It was barely a sound, more breath than voice, but it was enough. Ron took her paw in his massive hand, holding it as gently as if it were made of glass. Tears flowed freely down his scarred face, and he did not try to hide them. "I am here," he said again. "I am here, and I will never leave you. Never again." Deho watched the reunion from his chair, a tired smile on his face. This was why he had become a doctor. Not for the thanks or the glory, but for moments like this. Moments when death stepped back, when life won, when families stayed whole. Sira's eyes moved around the room, taking in the strange machines, the strange walls, the strange creatures standing nearby. When her gaze landed on Deho, she tilted her head. "Papa," she said quietly, "who is that?" Ron looked at Deho. For a long moment, the Alpha did not speak. Then he said something that Deho never expected to hear. "That is your healer, little one. He's the one who saved your life." Sira studied Deho with curious eyes. She had never seen a human before. He was so small, so strange, with no fur and no claws and no fangs. He did not look like a healer. He did not look like a warrior. He looked like nothing she had ever seen. "He saved me?" she asked. "Yes, he and his friend. They worked all night to bring you back to me." Sira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He looks tired." "Despite everything," Deho laughed. It was a small laugh, exhausted and broken, but real. "I am tired," he admitted. "But I am also very happy. You scared us for a while there." Sira looked at him with an expression that was far too serious for such a small face. "I am sorry I scared you," she said. "It is okay. Just promise me you will not do it again. I promise." Deho stood up slowly, his legs aching from sitting too long. He walked to the medical table and looked down at the cub who had almost died in his arms. She was still weak, still covered in bandages, still connected to machines that helped her body heal. But she was alive. She was awake. She was going to be okay. Without thinking, without planning, Deho did something that came from pure instinct. He leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to Sira's brow. "Rest now, little one," he murmured. "You are safe. Your father is here, and you are safe." The room went completely silent. Deho straightened up, suddenly aware that something had changed. Ron was staring at him with wide eyes. The two HFY warriors at the door had gone rigid, their mouths hanging open. Even Hannah, who had just entered the room to check on her patient, had frozen in place. "What?" Deho asked, confused. "Did I do something wrong?" Ron's voice was barely a whisper. The kiss on the brow. I am sorry. I did not mean to offend. No." Ron held up a hand, stopping him. "You do not understand. Among our people, the kiss on the brow is sacred. It is the highest form of affection. It is given only by parents to children, only by mates who have fought together, bled together, proved their love through sacrifice." His voice shook. "No outsider has ever performed it. No outsider has ever earned the right." Deho felt his heart stop. "I did not know. I am so sorry. In my culture, it is just a way of showing care, of comforting someone who is hurt." "You comforted my daughter," Ron said slowly. "You stayed by her side all night. You fought death itself to keep her alive. And then you showed her affection that among my people is reserved for family." He looked at Deho with an expression that the human could not read. "You treated her as if she were your own." Deho did not know what to say. He looked at Sira, who was watching him with wide, curious eyes. "She is a child," Deho said finally. "I do not know much about your people or your customs, but I know that children need love. They need to know that someone cares about them, that someone will protect them, that they are not alone." He met Ron's gaze. "I do not care what species she is. I do not care what your people think of mine. All I know is that she was hurt and scared and alone, and I could not let her face that by herself." The room was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Ron did something that no HFY had ever done in the presence of an outsider. He dropped his spear. The weapon clattered to the floor, the sound echoing through the small medical bay. Behind him, the two warriors at the door hesitated for just a moment. Then they dropped their spears too. "You have shown me something today," Ron said, his voice thick with emotion. "Something I have never seen before. You have shown me that strength is not just in claws and fangs. It is in the heart. It is in the willingness to sacrifice for those who cannot protect themselves." He stepped forward and placed his massive hand on Deho's shoulder. "I was wrong about your people. I was wrong about you." Deho felt tears prick in his eyes. What does this mean? Ron looked at his daughter, at the human doctor, and his fallen spear. "It means," he said slowly, "that you are not our enemies anymore. You are something I never thought I would call a human." He took a deep breath. "You are Pack." Sira reached out and grabbed Deho's hand with her small paw. Her grip was weak, but warm. "Does this mean you are my family now?" she asked. Deho looked at Ron, who nodded. "Yes, little one," Deho said, his voice breaking. "I suppose it does." And for the first time in the history of two species, a human and a HFY stood together not as enemies, not as strangers, but as family. The galaxy would never be the same. The news spread like fire through dry grass. It started on the HFY ships that had surrounded the Haniul's promise, passed from warrior to warrior in whispers and disbelief. Then it jumped to the communication networks, traveling across the star system in moments. Within a day, it had reached every corner of HFY space. Alpha Ron, the undefeated warrior, the terror of a dozen systems, had dropped his spear for a human. Not just dropped it. He had declared the humans Pack. The reaction was immediate and violent. Some HFY leaders called it madness. Others called it weakness. Many demanded that Ron be stripped of his rank and exiled for his betrayal of their ancient traditions. How could he accept these small, soft, clawless creatures as equals? How could he show them the honor that should be reserved only for the strongest warriors? But Ron did not care what they said. He had seen something that none of them had seen. He had watched a human risk his life for a child that was not his own. He had watched human doctors work through the night to save a Cathari cub, knowing that failure would mean their death. He had seen strength that had nothing to do with size or weapons or battle, and he would not forget it. 3 weeks passed on the Haniel's promise. Sira grew stronger every day, her small body healing with the remarkable speed of the young. She followed Deho everywhere, asking him endless questions about humans and Earth, and the strange things they ate, and the even stranger ways they lived. He answered every question with patience and kindness, and she adored him for it. Hannah checked on her patient every morning, making sure that the internal damage was healing properly. She taught Sira about human medicine, about how they use machines and knowledge instead of just time and rest. Sira listened with wide eyes, fascinated by this strange species that fought death with science instead of claws. Yuna spent her time in long conversations with Ron, learning about Cathari culture and sharing stories of humanity's history. They were not friends, not yet, but there was a growing respect between them. Ron had once seen humans as prey. Now he was beginning to see them as something else entirely. The crew of the Haniels. Promise had come to this sector expecting death. Instead, they had found something far more valuable. They had found understanding. When the 3 weeks ended and Sira was well enough to return to her father's ship, the entire Cathari fleet gathered to watch. Warriors who had sworn to kill every human they met now stood in silent lines, their spears held not in attack but in salute. Ron addressed his warriors with Sira standing beside him, her small paw wrapped in bandages, but her amber eyes bright and clear. "I know what you are thinking," he said, his voice carrying across the vast hangar where they had gathered. "You think I have gone mad. You think I have betrayed our ways by calling these humans pack. You think I am weak." No one spoke. No one dared. "But let me tell you what I have seen," Ron continued. "I have seen a human put himself between my daughter and death. I have seen human hands, small and soft and without claws, reach inside her body and pull her back from the void. I have seen a human kiss her brow and call her little one, the way I might call my own child." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We have always believed that strength means being able to kill. We have always believed that the strongest are those who survive, those who crush their enemies, those who know no mercy. But I was wrong. The humans have shown me a different kind of strength. The strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The strength to show kindness to those who would have killed them. The strength to love even when love is dangerous." He looked at his warriors, seeing the doubt and confusion in their eyes. "You do not have to agree with me today," he said, "but I ask you to remember what I have told you. And when the time comes, when you face a choice between killing and mercy, I ask you to think about what true strength really means." The hangar was silent. Then, slowly, one warrior stepped forward. It was the young one, the one who had carried Sira to the human ship, the one who had first asked Yuna why the humans were helping them. He walked to the center of the hangar and dropped his spear. "I have seen it too," he said, his voice clear and strong. "I have seen the humans, and I believe what Alpha Ron says is true." Another warrior stepped forward, and another, and another. One by one, spears clattered to the floor, until the entire hangar was filled with the sound of weapons falling. Ron felt something swell in his chest. Pride, hope, the beginning of something new. 2 months later, Captain Yuna Park stood before the United Earth Council and presented her report. The council members listened in stunned silence as she described everything that had happened. The boarding, the dying cub, the surgery, the kiss, the alliance. "What you are saying," the council president said slowly, "is that the Cathari, the most feared warrior race in the galaxy, have agreed to a peace treaty with humanity. Yuna smiled. More than a treaty, sir. They have offered us membership in their pack. In their culture, that is the highest honor. It means they consider us family. The council erupted in noise, everyone talking at once. Some were overjoyed. Others were suspicious. A few were terrified, but Yuna stood calmly, waiting for the noise to die down. I know this is hard to believe, she said. I barely believe it myself. But I was there. I watched it happen. I saw a bridge built between two species that should have been enemies, all because one man chose compassion over fear. She thought about Daiho, about Hannah, about her crew. She thought about Ron and Sierra and the warriors who had dropped their spears. This is what humanity can do, she said quietly. Not just survive, not just fight, but connect. Understand. Love. That is our greatest weapon. That is our greatest strength. And I believe, with all my heart, that it can change the galaxy. The council voted that afternoon. The alliance was approved. 1 year later, Daiho stood in the grand hall of the Kethari homeworld, surrounded by creatures that had once wanted to tear him apart. But there was no hostility in their eyes now. Only warmth. Only welcome. Sierra bounded up to him, now fully healed, her silver fur shining in the light. She had grown so much since that terrible night on Mahaniel's promise. She was taller now, stronger, but still the same curious, brave cub he had fought to save. "Back, father!" she called out, using the title she had given him months ago. "You came. You really came." Daiho knelt down and wrapped his arms around her. "Of course I came," he said. "I would never miss your ceremony." Today was Sierra's naming day, the Kethari celebration of a cub reaching her 5th year. It was a day of joy and pride, and Daiho had traveled across half the galaxy to be here. Ron approached them, his scarred face softened by a smile that still looked strange on his features. "You honor us with your presence, Pack Father," he said. "Our house is your house. Our food is your food. Our family is your family." Daiho stood and clasped Ron's arm in the Kethari gesture of respect. "And mine is yours." Around them, humans and Kethari mingled freely, sharing food and stories and laughter. It was a sight that would have been impossible just 2 years ago. But here they were, two species that had once seen each other as enemies, now standing together as family. Yuna watched from across the hall, a glass of strange alien wine in her hand. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fear, the hope, the impossible choices, and she realized something important. They had not changed the Kethari with weapons or threats or power. They had changed them with compassion, with sacrifice, with a kiss on a dying cub's brow. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not their technology or their armies or their clever plans, their hearts. And as Sierra's laughter echoed through the hall, mixing with the rumble of Kethari voices and the softer sounds of human speech, Yuna knew that this was just the beginning. The pack was growing, and it would keep growing one act of kindness at a time, until the whole galaxy knew what humanity had always known, that love was stronger than hate, that mercy was braver than revenge, and that the smallest gesture of compassion could change everything.